Next item, please, Vicki.
Item G, waive first reading and introduce an ordinance adding Chapter 11.38 to Title 11, Buildings, Construction, and Fire Protection of the San Bruno Municipal Code, establishing an expedited and streamlined permitting process for electric vehicle charging stations.
David, please.
Mr. Mayor and council members, this evening our Chief Building Official Bruno is with me on this item. He will be the individual more centrally involved with its implementation and did considerable work on the ordinance and prepared a good part of the staff report. I'm going to give the presentation, and Roy and I are both here to answer any questions you may have. In 2015, Assembly Bill 1236 was adopted by the state of California, which requires jurisdictions with a population of less than 200,000 residents to adopt an ordinance to establish expedited and streamlined permitting procedures for electrical vehicle charging stations, EVCS, by September 30th of 2017. The purpose of this item is to consider adoption of an ordinance amending Title 11 of the San Bruno Municipal Code, Buildings, Construction, and Fire Protection, to establish an expedited and streamlined permitting procedure for EVCS in compliance with Assembly Bill 1236. This ordinance must include the requirement that the city will adopt a checklist of requirements for EVCS applications to be eligible for expedited review. AB 1236 preempted local requirements that had not been updated to provide streamlining, and penalties are not assessed for late adoption by cities. The purpose of AB 1236 is to promote the use of electrical vehicle charging stations by removing barriers to homeowners and businesses installing EVCS. An EVCS is defined as any level of electric vehicle supply equipment station which delivers electricity from a source outside an electric vehicle into a plug-in electrical vehicle. In the past 3 years, the Community Development Department has reviewed and approved approximately 13 building permits for single-family and multifamily EVCS using an expedited review process. The Building Division has already implemented a streamlined permit review and approval process for EVCS, including deployment of the state-prescribed guidelines for single EVCS installed within a garage of a single-family dwelling, which is conducted over the counter or within 24 hours of submittal. Larger projects with multiple charging stations, including multifamily or commercial occupancies that are more complex and require further review for conformance with disability accessibility standards and a more thorough evaluation of the existing electrical power system, are typically completed within 10 working days. I should point out that AB 1236 is intended to address the smaller, less complex electrical vehicle charging stations. The proposed ordinance attached to your staff report on this item requires the Community Development Department to create a checklist that will help expedite the review process for single charging stations installed in single-family dwellings and multiple charging stations installed on multifamily or commercial properties. The checklist must contain objective requirements for the installation of an EVCS and a process for electronic submittal of permit applications. The checklist outlines documentation the applicant must provide with the application to qualify for expedited review, including but not limited to the following: existing electrical service rating in amps, system voltage, connected or calculated load, spare capacity in amps, electric vehicle supply equipment, voltage, amperage reading, circuit rating, location, if ventilation is or is not required, and clearances of the charging equipment to comply with all applicable building and fire safety laws. The The checklist also helps the applicant to determine whether the location of the electric vehicle supply equipment will comply with any vehicle clearance requirements in the city's zoning ordinance. We've attached a copy of a checklist that we're working on to your packet. It's attachment number 2. In accordance with the intent of AB 1236 to provide an expedited, streamlined permitting process for EVCS, the following processes to have been implemented. Improve expedited permit process in accordance with the AB 1236 guidelines, create a checklist for expedited plan review, post the checklist requirements online, reduce field inspections to 1 inspection, provide ongoing training of permitting staff in the use of the checklist to expedite reviews of Tier 2 EVCS for single-family dwellings. Staff is taking the measures to meet all of these requirements of AB 1236. We have the draft checklist, which is attached to your report. As stated below under the fiscal impact section of the staff report, the number of EVCS permit applications has been small in number, 13 as I mentioned. It is anticipated that staff will be able to develop procedures to satisfy the state requirements. However, staff will monitor activity for possible future adjustments. The ordinance attached to your staff report is intended to satisfy all the requirements of AB 1236. The fiscal impact to the city at this time is minimal based on the small number of EVCS permit applications processed to date. However, it is anticipated that with the increase in electric vehicles available to the marketplace, there will be a progressive increase of over-the-counter plan review services required to accommodate the state mandate. It is recommended, staff is recommending, that a reevaluation of the fiscal impact be conducted within the next fiscal year to analyze total costs associated with implementing the mandate, including permitting processing time expended by staff, electronic submittal requirements, electronic signatures, and the possible future need for staff. We're not anticipating needing additional staff at this time. With that, our staff is recommending to the City Council this evening that you waive first reading and introduce an ordinance adding Chapter 11.38 to Title 11, Buildings, Construction, and Fire Protection of the San Bruno Municipal Code, establishing an expedited and streamlined permitting process for electric vehicle charging stations in compliance with AB 1236. That concludes my staff report. Both Roy and I are available to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
Chair.
Mr. Salazar. Michael.
David, can you elaborate a little bit on the city's ability to take these applications online? Because it sounds like that is part of the requirement. Are we doing any kind of online applications right now for permits?
We can do online applications at this time. We have the capability, for example, for an applicant in a case like this to submit electronically by way of email an application. We can review and process that application. So yes, we have that ability. We intend, though, to develop that further, and perhaps I can ask Roy to talk a little bit about that in terms of what we're hoping to do as we move forward with this. He and I talked about this earlier today and in the recent past as well. Roy?
Yes, thank you, and congratulations, everybody new. Yeah, you were kind enough to approve us an update to our Trackit system, which included 2 modules. One module is the eTrackit module, which opens up the capability for us to actually have people apply for permits and be issued permits online direct. That includes a banking module so they can pay for it online. We've not completed the implementation of that or the deployment of that. We anticipate probably by second or third quarter of this year to bring that forward and have that capability. Like I said, and that will include minor non-plan check items. And we'll also include the EVCS and also include simple solar voltaic installations too, which was another ordinance that you all had approved that was a state mandated item in 2016.
Okay, thank you. And any concerns with the state mandate? It sounds like we're meeting it, but I know that we don't always agree with the state in terms of what they're insisting on. So not that we can do much about it, but if we had to implement this differently, would we do anything differently?
I don't think so. I think that actually they're starting to get it right. I know
Excellent.
sometimes they create some things that create problems for cities, like the Water Conserving Act that for the fixtures that went at its face looked like anytime you changed a switch anywhere or did any kind of work on your home, you had to replace all of your fixtures to meet today's water conserving things, which of course we all vetted that out and it works. So I think they're getting wiser. There probably will be another one coming in a year or two that'll include the electric storage, energy storage systems, which is the Powerwall 2. That'll probably also be included in that movement to expedite those processes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Laura?
Just curious, is the document that they can submit online something they've got to print, fill out, scan it, email it back, or is it a writable PDF that you can actually fill in the fields and submit it?
So at this time, the idea would be to put the checklist online on our website, and to the extent we can work with our IT department, ideally it would be one that could fill in. If not, at least we would be providing the document online, so at home the applicant could complete the checklist, understand what the requirements are, and walk in the door with a completed checklist, understanding what needs to be done, and contact our staff by phone as necessary to get more information. So literally for the smaller applications, we could provide over-the-counter permitting, and that's the objective. I think Roy and the building division staff have done a good job at already doing that in many cases with the smaller requests.
Thank you. Good.
Other questions? Marty? Do you have any? Irene? Okay, does anybody want to make a motion to waive the first reading?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Anybody want to introduce the ordinance?
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Vicki?
I'm sorry.
Councilmember Salazar.
Yes.
Yeah. we
waived
made a
it in
motion to
second,
waive
and then
reading,
we're- You're not slow.
and I introduced the ordinance.
Great. Councilmember Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye.